Hey everyone, welcome to episode 258 of Dade County. What you can see the bottom of the shirt. Expose. I said what I said. All of the above.
I
Dade
need
County
more shirts like this.
IAE. What does IAE stand for?
That's the brand. I don't even remember. I know where I got the shirt from, but I do need more shirts like this. I got a Carroll City shirt too, but I represent Dade.
Yes, you do. IAE. I am excited.
I don't think I'll ever live in Broward. I know. Yeah, it's not for me.
Okay.
I'm a 305 boy.
Are you now? Okay. So we're gonna keep it 305 then, just like Pitbull, as we discuss. Yes, earlier.
Name me one Pitbull song you know.
Fireball. Thank you, my love.
I don't even know what Fireball is.
Omar doesn't know what Fireball is. Hold on. I know a couple of collaborations he made. Tonight, Give Me Tonight.
Pitbull. Oh, yeah. Pitbull was such a street rapper in Miami coming out of Hialeah, and now he Mr. Worldwide, which I support and respect.
Absolutely. Mr. 305.
Mr. 305, yes.
Attended a press conference with him at Hard Rock Stadium. He had some kind of deal with the Dolphins, and I can't for the life of me recall exactly what it entailed. But it was a press conference, and he showed up, and it's like full energy, full Mr. 305. Give Me Everything Tonight. I think is this song. He had another one. I'll work on it. Come up with some song. So we previously broke down the Dolphin roster by position on the offense. Today, logic suggests we're going to look at the defense and then see what they've done in the offseason, whether it's good enough where they stand right now, what else they might do in this offseason.
If you really take a good look at what they did, obviously they lost some key pieces in Christian Wilkins, Andrew Van Ginkel, Jerome Baker, Xavier Howard. I'm not going to throw Emmanuel Abba in, but I probably should, considering he was a starter for multiple years until he got basically dislodged last season. But now they replaced all of those players with decent, and except for Christian Wilkins, that's just a hodgepodge of Jags, to be honest with you. But they replaced all of those players with decent, if not upper echelon NFL starters: Kendall Fuller, Jordy Brooks, Shaquille Barrett. The question is, are they a better unit than last year's number 9 defense? And can they continue to make progressions forward, not only with a new defensive coordinator and Anthony Weaver, but where's the young talent? And that's my biggest concern about this Dolphins defense. Outside of Jalen Phillips and Javon Holland, 2 guys that are entering critical years for contracts. Javon Holland's entered in the final year of his contract. You know what time that means. It means pay me time. And then Jalen Phillips is coming off an Achilles injury, and he's also entering his 5th-year option, just like Jalen Waddle. That's what happens when you have 2 first-round picks. What will the Dolphins do there? Will the Dolphins be wise enough to give him a multi-year contract instead of the 5th-year option? Or will they let him play out his next 2 seasons and then let him go to the market like they did Christian Wilkins? It'll be interesting to see what happens. But outside of those 2 names, where's the young talent? Are you throwing Kader Kohu on that pile?
No, and I like Kader. Not when he's coming off a season when his opponent passer rating when targeted was 131. No, I'm not including him in that list. And yeah, and this is where more so than on offense, the lack of young talent, as you mentioned, really shows up. And it shows up even more when you consider the top pick in each of the last 2 drafts were defensive players, Channing Tindall and Cam Smith.
Who did not play.
No, correct. Who have yet to show that they're going to become productive defensive players in the NFL. I have much higher hopes for Cam Smith. I do think he's going to become a good player at some point with Channing Tindall.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. There's all need to be said. The other issue on defense is they've done a good job of replacing most of what they lost, as you mentioned. And I don't think they're significantly weaker anywhere else. But if you can't see that they're significantly weaker up front, I don't know what to say because that's glaring. And yeah, they signed Isaiah Mack, Davion Nixon. They re-signed Deshaun Hand, Benito Jones, Jonathan Harris, Neville Gallimore. So they signed a whole lot of players. None of those comes
Whole
close.
lot of bodies.
His words, not mine. His words. None of those comes close in terms of production and career resume to Christian Wilkins. And I get it. Yeah. And I wrote about this on SI.com/NFL/Dolphins. Dolphins got an awful lot of players for the $22 million it would have taken to tag Christian Wilkins, or the $10.6 million cap number he's got with the Raiders for his first year had the Dolphins gone the long-term extension route. So I get it. At some point, you can only pay a defensive tackle so much unless he's a game wrecker a la Chris Jones, a la Aaron Donald. But you still have to replace the dude.
It'll be interesting to see what happens. Let's start with the breakdown of the pass rushers, because if we just look at where we are from an injury standpoint with Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, Cameron Good, all facing 9-month rehabs from their knee injuries or Achilles injuries, that leaves the Dolphins with Shaquille Barrett, Quentin Bell, and Zeke Vanderburg.
Well done that you came up with the name. Very impressive.
As their edge players to begin the season. Now, I don't live in La La Land. I don't live in fantasy land. So I'm not going to sit here and say that 9 months after a rehab, Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb are going to be healthy enough to be ready for the season opener. What I will say is maybe they'll be healthy enough to begin the season in October on the football field. Start playing in October. And even then, I don't think they'll be 100% or be on an unlimited snap count. So when I look at these edge positions, it's very clear and glaring to me that you need one, if not two more.
Oh, is this where I come in? Okay. I tend to agree with you. I don't know that we can rule out Phillips, Chubb for the start of the regular season. It certainly might be foolish to count on them and then to decide that's definitely happening. And this is where also Shaquille Barrett's a one-year solution. I don't think impossible, no. But this is also where BPA meets need for the Dolphins at 21. If there's a stud there, that could be your first-round target right there, just as much as of a possibility as the interior of the offensive line. And we throw out Jackson Powers-Johnson and Graham Barton as offensive linemen. Well, you throw out Letu from UCLA if he winds up being there at 21. You could throw out Chop Robinson. I saw an NFL.com mock draft today. That's who was mocked to the Dolphins at 21. Guys who have a lot of potential to become really good NFL players. And again, I wouldn't say bypass a better prospect to fill that need, but if it's close and you have the possibility of matching BPA versus top need, I could easily see an edge defender being the first pick at 21.
Okay. And it's interesting that you say that, and I'm not going to argue and disagree with you, but isn't there a greater need for a defensive tackle, or are you just good with the bodies?
No, I'm good with the best player. Again, this is where
BPA.
If we're going needs, it's interior of the offensive line, defensive tackle, edge defender.
I don't know how you just ignore wide receiver.
Because you have Hill and Waddle for now. Okay, wide receiver. Okay, we'll put wide receiver at 4. Okay, or safety for the future at 5. Also,
safety. That's true, because they've only got 3 safeties on the roster. You do realize that, right?
Correct. And one of them is a 33-year-old or 32-year-old coming off like a bit of a down year. So, but it's going to come down to, again, you're scouting who's the best player at one of those positions. In terms of defensive tackles, I don't know that they're quite the numbers up top in terms of the prospect class as there are at
pass rushers.
At pass rusher, yeah. We're talking Johnny Newton from Illinois. We're talking Byron Murphy II from Texas. as far as first round
Chris
picks.
Jenkins from Michigan. Then you got the Sweat kid from Texas. You got Michael Hall Jr. But the question is, how many of those guys do you think you're going to have to use a first or second round pick on? And here's the thing: because you don't have that many you have a 1 or 2, and then late day 3 drafts.
Yep.
So you got to hit 2 needs or get 2 studs or trade down to get more picks into the second day. So basically, you got to hit a home run on that first and second pick. At least
sure.
a double. At least
sure. And even with that, you and I both kind of championed the idea on the previous podcast that if Michael Penix Jr. is there at 21, it wouldn't be a bad move to pick him. Then
they're not doing it.
No, correct.
Yeah,
they're not doing it, but it would be a good value pick. And then, but you wouldn't.
Here's why it would be a good value pick, and here's why they could do it. Is he a top 20 player on your board? Because ultimately, I was talking to Tony Pauline, and I asked Tony, draft analyst Tony Pauline, and I asked him earlier this week because I'm beginning my draft process and I'm beginning my draft work, and it takes a deep dive into what the class looks like. I asked him how many blue chip players. These are guys who should be locked for first round. He said 29, and that's an unusually high number. So that means that at 21, you should have either the opportunity to trade down to pick up more quality players, which I'm not opposed to, because truth be told, if you take a roll of the dice with the Dolphins first round pick, sometimes you hit, sometimes you don't. And I would rather have more quantity than quality, just because, hell, we've had Dolphin years where an undrafted player has been their biggest contributing rookie. So I'm not one of those big believers that, a first round pick, he's got to be really good. No, not necessarily.
He should be. I'm sorry,
if you were good at your job.
Well, okay. Damn, taking shots again. Go ahead.
Philip Merling, Dion Jordan.
Philip Merling was a 2.
I know, but he was a 32nd pick.
Okay, but technically fair.
We got years where actually it's not been bad in recent years. It's just you would like remember Jason Allen. There's no guarantee you're gonna hit a home run.
But that was an SEC infatuation by Nick Saban, and I mean that's what that was. If we're going to be honest about it. Well, he had 2 first round picks with the Dolphins, and both of them came from the SEC after he had coached at LSU.
So. Jamar Fletcher, and I know I'm not judging this organization based on what they've done in the past, but last I checked, Chris Greer was here for all those years. Anyway, did I tell a lie?
Yeah, but I don't believe he's the one. If
he's not in charge, but he
serves at Sabe Wanstead, who pushed for Jamar Fletcher over others who wanted Drew Brees.
Yes, he was a peon in the room at that time, so it's all good. I'll let him off the hook. But you got to hit a home run with those first 2 picks. And the way that I look at this roster, outside of the offensive line need, I think this draft has to be a defensive heavy draft. I think you have to pour your focus, energy, effort, and attention into this defense because the cupboards are bare. There's nothing there.
But whatever happened to your glaring need at wide receiver that you keep bringing up?
You do have a need at wide receiver. You do. And if you like somebody and he's there at 21, and I think a wide receiver can fall in this draft. And if you like somebody and it's a value pick, you make the pick because you're going to need to develop young talent and restock them. And we all know it takes about a year to learn this offense, especially from a receiver standpoint. I'd rather do it a year early than a year late. But if I'm going to draft for need, I'm going to give you a heavy defensive draft because you need DT help. You need edge rusher help. You need cornerback help. You need safety help. The only area that you don't need help is at inside linebacker, and that's because you added 2 in free agency.
Correct. which is where they've solidified that position to me, because I think we both agreed Brooks is a bit of an upgrade over Baker. And then you added Anthony Walker Jr., who's a really nice addition as well. So now you have 4 solid ones with David Long Jr. and Duke Riley. So I think they're set there. That's a position they don't need to touch. Cornerback, they have a lot of players, but they clearly don't have anybody. No, I'm sorry. They do now with Kendall Fuller. So cornerback, I think it's a position they could be okay with what they have right now with Kendall Fuller, Jalen Ramsey, of course, Cater Kohu, Nick Needham,
Cam Smith
hopefully developing. I'm not going to forget him. Ethan Bonner, who's a very intriguing prospect.
Cyril Neal.
Cyril Neal's pretty much a special teams guy. But I think
they're okay. You don't think that man has dreams of playing cornerback in the NFL?
Again, it's been 4 years. It hasn't happened yet. So sure, I have dreams of dunking a basketball, and I've kind of realized it's not happening unless I play on an 8-foot basket. So at some point, reality has to come into play. So is it impossible that he develops into a cornerback 5 years into his NFL career? Sure. Anything can happen. To count on it or even to mention it, I think that's.
It's not. Oh, let's not be disrespectful. We can mention it. Now, is that the reason why he's going to be on the roster? Look at Keon Crossan. He was a career special teams guy, and back in the 2022 season, he had to play on defense, and kind of got offended when I called him a special teams guy.
And made a really, really big play in a game against the Bears to help secure a win on a play that he should have gotten flagged for DPI. But hey, that's a different story. They didn't call it. It's not a penalty if they don't call it. But the bottom line, again, yeah, sure, out of necessity, Cyril Neal can play cornerback, but that's not the plan. The Dolphins, to me, have enough there. They're very thin at safety because who they have: Javon Holland, Jordan Poyer,
Elijah Campbell. Don't forget about
Elijah Campbell, who's played as much cornerback as he's played safety. So very thin there. They have a lot of guys at defensive tackle. They do not have what looks like an impact player, a difference maker.
Deshaun Hand, Jonathan Harris, Benito Jones, Neville Gallimore, Isaiah Mack, Devion Nixon, and then I won't forget Brandon Peely. Wouldn't it be interesting if Brandon Peely's better than a lot of those guys?
That would be cool. It would have worked out well for them. What they would like is one of those guys to jump up and say, "I'm your dude. I need to be in there more often than not." Because right now it's going to be Zach Sealer and the revolving door. So I think we're looking at edge defender, to me, as big of a need as interior offensive lineman at the top of that draft.
Let me ask you this question. Let's move on to a little bit to the inside linebackers, where they've got 5 players there in that unit: Jordan Brooks, David Long Jr., Anthony Walker, Duke Riley, Channing Tindall. They chose not to re-sign Calvin Munson, and we all know how that gets played out. Maybe Munson comes after the draft, maybe he doesn't. He's a special teams guy. I'm very curious to how the special teams rule changes are going to impact how teams' rosters are built and who works on special teams. Joe Rose was making a very good point, because I initially thought that those protection packages would be used, 280-pound to 300-pound guys would be used for blocking. And Joe was like, no, they're going to have fast guys, tight ends, linebackers, because you could just run right around a 300-pounder. So I'm going to be very curious to see how these new changes to the rules impacts how these coaches are going to coach those units in the return game, and how it formulates the development of a 53-man roster. But getting back to the conversation, why do you think they signed 2 starting caliber inside linebackers in Anthony Walker and Jordan Brooks?
Well, Brooks signed for 1 year, 1.4.
No,
look it up again.
Brooks, I mean,
Anthony Walker, I said.
Oh, Anthony Walker, you mean? Yeah. Okay.
Brooks signed with the idea that that's going to be our guy for the foreseeable future. I think
Brooks signed, but I mean, Anthony Walker signed a 1 year, $1.2 million contract with $750,000 in guaranteed. Now, obviously, that doesn't hit you. I'm not even sure that's a top 51 salary guy.
I looked at the list. It's right above it. The minimum salary guys are below the top 51 cutoff, but that's kind of the kind of contract that tells you he's there for depth purposes, and it's not it's not starter money in the least. So I think they wanted more depth, and they had injuries there last year with Baker going down, and then Duke Riley got banged up a little bit toward the end of the season. And clearly this is a sign they're not necessarily comfortable with giving a lot of playing time on defense to Channing Tindall. So no, I like the move. It's a good.
Our walking papers for Channing Tindall. Is that what we're doing?
Maybe it wouldn't surprise me. But there's nothing wrong with it if you can add like good, solid veteran depth at a really good price. I like it. I think that was a very solid move. I like what they did at inside linebacker. I like what they did at cornerback with the inevitable move of X when he's gonna. Well, again, there's no way in hell he could play. They could bring him back at $25 million.
No, not at that salary. But okay. Let me ask you this question: who would you rather give $8 million to, Xavier Howard or Kendall Fuller?
I'm not. 2 years ago, I would have laughed at that question. I don't anymore because X the past 2 years hasn't been X very often, and that's the thing. And Fuller's younger than X. So at this particular time, and it wasn't a question of it had to be one or the other, because you know damn well that X wasn't bringing his cap number down to $8 million.
Oh, I think X.
Unless they threw him signing bonus money. And,
no. I think X is in the $8 million, probably less realm. I don't think X is going to get a $10 million deal on the market right now.
Well, correct now because he's been cut. I'm saying had the Dolphins presented him with the idea we're going to cut your salary to $8 million. How hard do you think he would have laughed at the Dolphins for that suggestion? Come on.
I don't know. I know he wasn't going to return. I know that.
Okay.
There you go. From what it all sounds like, X is looking to latch on to a contender, whether that's Houston, whether that's Kansas City. And I think Kansas City is a real good possibility. I know Houston is something that he really wants to happen for family purposes, but I think he wants a title. And he wants to be playing in late January.
But isn't this where a smart guy would say he wants to play for a contender? Aren't the Dolphins a contender? They made the playoffs the last 2 years. They were the number one seed, or they were playing for the number one seed heading into week 17 when they qualify as a contender.
What you want me to say?
The truth. I can handle the truth.
You can't handle the truth. I don't know. I think the way X looked at it was, especially when he made his decision that he wasn't really coming back, was there's going to be so much loss, so much turnover, so much change. Yeah. Go for something more sure. Because if you've spent how many years? 8 years of your career treading water with one organization, and keep in mind, he's been here for the dysfunctional years. You get what I'm saying? He's
winning record the last 4 years.
True, but he's also been here for the dysfunctional years, like
2019. And he was done early in 2019, if you recall. That's when he wound up on IR, like after 4 or 5 games.
Yeah, and I'm sure they didn't mind.
And I'm sure he didn't mind either.
But yeah, when you've been here, when you've been in an organization, and when your family's dysfunctional, you especially when you've been in the family for so long, it's only a matter of time. I think. I don't want to speak for him.
No, correct. But here's the thing, though. Going back to my original point, is there's no way in hell that X was going to take a pay cut or significant pay cut to stay with the Dolphins. Now, with that being on the table, I think the Dolphins did pretty damn well in getting Kendall Fuller as his replacement. Is it going to be peak X and Ramsey? Probably not quite, because I think peak X is still better. But how often do we see peak X the last couple of years? Again, mostly because of the injuries that kept cropping up. I think the Dolphins, if they can get good quality play from their slot guy, if it turns out to be Cater, if it turns out to be Nick Needham, and I think the Dolphins are fine at cornerback.
Okay. I will weigh in on this topic when I'm at training camp and I see Kendall Fuller cover Tyreek Hill?
Nobody covers Tyreek Hill, even X, even
X covered him in training camp. Come on, don't you act like Tyreek was killing X in training camp. It wasn't happening. Come on, let's not do that.
Sure, nobody was covering him that first year. I mean, nobody was.
Oh, not the first year. I'm talking about last training camp. No. Remember, X wasn't practicing the first year. Remember that?
Yeah, and then last year it looked like Tyreek was dealing with stuff the whole summer.
He was, and he was taking it easy. He was pacing himself.
He was like, let me not discourage my teammates on defense here.
I'm trying to build confidence. He actually said that to me. Yeah.
Yeah, the first year was about.
He should be focused on building Tua's confidence. That's whose confidence he should be focused on. Anyway.
No, that's what he did. That's what he did the first summer.
He did. You're correct. But again, I have not. I am unfortunately. I'm going to be shifting my gears to draft prospects because of draft, so I haven't really looked at Kendall Fuller. I am looking at Brewer, the center, because I want to see what traits they're looking for offensive linemen, because I think he's the model of what they're looking for this next level of the offensive line, and I need to know what those traits look like for draft prospects. But I really do think that. I'm curious to see what Kendall Fuller brings to the table. Curious to see how good he is, because a lot of people say that his metrics and his Pro Football Focus numbers were great. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm curious to see what it looks like during training camp, because I've been here. The one thing I will always say about the Dolphins is I think they do a decent job of evaluating and developing cornerbacks, despite who's here or despite what coach or scheme. I don't think the zone fit them, but then again, I think they're going to continue to play zone. So let me not be, blasphemous, but I don't think, and I have been very consistent in it, I do not think it's going to be as easy to replace Xavier Howard as a lot of people think it is.
And for me, the key on defense is going to be as much when Chubb and Phillips are back, but what level can they attain when they do come back?
Okay. And the pass rush impacts the coverage.
Correct. Because it's not as simple as automatically, well, they're going to be back at 100%, say October 15, and boom, they'll pick up where they left off. It's not quite that. That's the hope, but there's no guarantee that's going to happen. It could take a while for that to happen. Hell, it might not even happen until 2025. We don't know yet. But that, to me, is going to be a big key to how good this defense can be.
Mm-hmm. What unit were we at? We were at cornerback. You
did. Specialists.
I don't think we do. We need to get to the safety, because
we talked about the safeties.
Not really.
Okay, go ahead.
Javon Holland. No fifth-year option. Second round pick. Huh?
Big T's.
Big T's?
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to elaborate?
I think there's signs of something really, really, really special that the production has not come close to matching yet.
Production has not.
And I'm not just talking about Pro Football Focus throwing flowers in his direction left and right, ranking him the second best safety in the NFL in 2023, based on what I have no idea. But I think you see signs of it.
He was what? What did you say?
Pro Football Focus second highest rated safety in 2023.
Okay.
Exactly. If you say so. But I do think
I hate to laugh at that, because I
sorry. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Again, to me, the play didn't justify that kind of.
No. How do you handle his contract situation?
Very carefully. That's my go-to answer. I don't know. I don't know that I'm in a hurry to give him an extension, to be honest with you.
He's playing on $3.36 million this year,
which is not.
It's double what he made last year. So I don't know. I honestly don't know how you address this, or you can, if you want to learn from the mistakes that you've made in the past, you have to sign him. Because if I'm holding on to the franchise tag for Tua Tagovailoa, just in case, then I definitely can't have Javon Holland exposed to the market. But I also don't want to overpay.
Correct. And that's the thing. And there's also the issue of him missing a lot of games last year and him basically taking himself out of was it the Buffalo game where he started playing the game and he decided that he couldn't perform at the level he wanted to. Never mind that he's got coaches all around him that could have made that decision if they felt, we can put somebody else in there who's going to be better than the Javon Holland at less than 100%.
I mean, if you're out there and you're feeling it and you're not feeling it, I fully support you pulling yourself. Don't.
If he says, I believe that the post-game comment, and we can look it up, and I'm sure somebody will gladly tell me I'm wrong. I believe his comment wasn't that I was like afraid of injuring myself or I wasn't feeling right, something bad was going to happen. It was along the lines of I couldn't perform the way I wanted to perform. Sorry, you're not performing for yourself. You're performing for the team at that point. Sorry.
Okay, and if you're not performing the way that you want to perform, then you're clearly not the best guy to be out there and put your team. It wasn't the first game he's pulled himself from. When he came back from that knee issue, from I forget what it was, MCL knee issues, he pulled himself from a lot of games. He started playing a lot and then pulled himself. It wasn't just Buffalo.
Okay, I'm not sure. Okay, I'm not going to argue with you, but I'm not sure about that. But my point remains, again, this isn't, you're in the NFL now. This isn't so much. The idea is you're going to gain a whole lot more support and admiration and props from your teammates and coaches if you're sucking it up. Again, eliminating the risk of further injury. If that's not a factor, if the only issue is I can't be as good as I normally am, again, you're going to gain points with your teammates and coaches. They're like, I'm going to be in there. I'm going to bust my ass and do the best I can. If the coaches decide they're better off with somebody else in there at 100% than me, then let them make that decision instead of deciding on my own. Yeah, no, I'm not 100%. Sorry.
What, you're mad that he pulled himself? Because he didn't
for that reason. I'm not mad, dude. It's no skin off my back. I'm not mad. I don't think it would cause me to pause throwing big money at somebody. I want a gamer who's going to be in there, who's going to give everything he's got, and let the coaches make that decision.
Let me throw you out some contracts for safeties because we're trying to figure out how we handle this situation. Mm-hmm. Xavier McKinney, 4 years, $68 million with the Packers. You giving that over to Javon?
I don't think I'm doing anything with Javon until at least a few weeks into the season.
Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, 3 years, $33 million.
He's also a lot older. A lot more proven, a lot older. McKinney is more of a good comp because McKinney's pretty young too.
Geno Stone, 2 years, $15 million. 25-year-old player, by the way, who had a phenomenal season.
Well, I had a lot of picks, but best safety on that team is Kyle Hamilton. It's not even close.
So it'll be interesting to see. I don't have any more deals, which is why I'm at guys like Quentin Diggs, Micah Hyde. Not that Micah Hyde's any good anymore. What's his name? Allen. What's the safety's name?
Which one?
Strong safety got cut by Seattle. Justin Simmons is out there.
Yeah, Jamal Adams.
Jamal Adams. Yep. Can you imagine that guy? I would have put him in as a linebacker.
I was gonna say, yeah, it was good with the Jets, and he was like brutal with the Seahawks. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it was a bad scheme fit or what, but he just wasn't that dude anymore.
So, let's get to the specialists. Since you want to address specialists, I was very good with ignoring them, but I see you want to bring them into this.
It's status quo, and the only thing I'll say about the specialists, and I wrote about this on the site. I'd like somebody who's more of a home run hitter. I know I've seen other people suggesting the new rules make it clear you got to use Tyreek for
or
that
Achane.
or HN, you talking about two guys who dealt with stuff last year. And I get it. It makes a lot of sense. I'm not sure I'm crazy about exposing them back there. Give me a pure kickoff return special.
I gotta see how it plays out. I can't just make up stuff out of thin air. I gotta see how these return games. That's what the exhibition season is going to be for. See how the return game evolves. I'm excited for it, and I think that it'll add some juice to the game, and maybe guys like Tyreek will get back there every once in a while, maybe in critical moments. So,
yeah, like I said, I'm not crazy about it because you're looking at a guy who limped to the finish line each of his 2 seasons with the Dolphins. The other thing too is the Dolphins did decide to re-sign Jake Bailey as their punter. Does that have something to do with the way he holds for Jason Sanders? If holding was an issue with Thomas Morstead before that, wasn't an issue in New York last year because Greg Zuerlein, their kicker, was like 35 for 38. So was it? I don't know. Sanders didn't like the way Morstead. I never understood why the Dolphins didn't re-sign Morstead, whose numbers last year were across the board a little bit better than Bailey's.
And now they actually gave Bailey some money, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Mm-hmm. Well, folks, this has been part of our roster breakdown. We gave you the offense yesterday, defense today. We'll be back later this week to provide you more Dolphins content. We'll actually have a live show for you in the evening. I think what were we talking? Friday? No, Friday, Thursday? What are we doing?
One of those two.
Yeah. Looking forward to being here, breaking down some of the draft with some of our draft experts. But you know how to find us. How do you find us? SI.com, NFL Dolphins. That's where you find us. SI.com/NFL/Dolphins. As we've been hinting, the block is hot.
And we're still under All Dolphins podcast on YouTube or wherever you get your audio podcasts.
Yes, sir. All right, folks. See you tomorrow.